All right, hey, it's January 15th, your weekly Lake of the Ozarks fishing report. We'll give you the water conditions. The water conditions are clear, a lot clearer than we normally are this time of year. The lower end of the lake is normally pretty clear in the Gravois, but man, we're clear all the way up into the Nangwas, up to probably 45-mile marker, and everything all the way down to Bagnell Dam is, I'm going to call it clear this year. So it's really opened up the lake as far as, where you can go and fish. If you're wanting to fish, say, the clear water with stick baits and things, Alabama rigs, even jigs and things, just the water being a lot clearer has, to me, it seemed to kind of open up the lake, give you a lot more to fish when, the water temperature right now is hovering around 40, maybe 38 to 42, we'll say, depending on where you're at. You get up in the rivers or in the backs of bigger creeks, back on the flats, you're going to get around 38 degrees, 39. But if you get on the lower end, just inside the creeks, I'm still getting 41, 42 degrees. So, that's surface temperature. So if you're fishing, 12 to 20 foot, that water, it's going to stay 42 for a while, I would say. It's really not going to change a whole lot. I think in the coldest months, it may drop down to 39, once you get down that deep, but it really doesn't get any colder than that. So, we're about there as far as winter and water temperature. Of course, your surface temperature, it'll change. It'll get hard here in a few weeks. Some of the backs of the creeks will probably freeze up, but I don't see that happening for a while. Anyways, we're gonna have a few nice days next week. This is Friday night. I think tomorrow it's supposed to be up around 40. So as long as we get 40 degrees, 42, and some wind, that's going to keep the lake plenty clear of any ice. So no problems with ice there. Water level is still running way above where I would say normal. For winter, we're at 658.58, I believe it is, which is just a foot below summer pool, full pool. So I keep hearing projections about the winter drawdown, and I know it's coming. And they've even projected it to be a little lower this year to work. They're going to do some work on the dam, and then some work around the lake. So they're planning on pulling it down. At least that's the forecast. But so far, I haven't really seen it. They've been kind of doing some weird things with the current here. I'll say for the last week anyway. If you look back at Amber Newey's, hydro flow, it's an app you can get, and it'll show you exactly by the hour what's flowing, and it's you can look at it. It's up to date, so to the minute basically. But you can look back for the last 2 weeks and see. They've been up as much as 28,000. They'll run 28,000 for a couple hours, and they'll drop it to 18, and then they'll drop down to 1,500. And then it'll go, several hours, and they'll run it back up to 20,000, and then they'll drop it back down to 1,500. So I'm not real sure what's going on, why that. Usually they kind of gradually ramp it up, leave it there, and then gradually bring it back down. But it's kind of been a little different. If you take a look at that app, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's kind of all over the place, but it's regardless, it's maintained the lake level at around 658 and a half, I'm gonna say. So the drawdown's coming. I haven't seen it start yet. So last couple weeks, just not a whole lot of change in baits and techniques and how we're fishing. And it's really not going to change for several weeks. Just the same finesse jigs, just little finesse jigs. I'm just sticking to the Ozark Crawl 3/8 zapper when it's fairly calm and I can feel, I'm throwing it on 10 or 12 pound test. on a good Falcon Cara rod, and you know, this high speed lose reel. Like I've said before, your jig bottom bait setup is extremely critical, especially this time of year, because the bite can be just very faint if you're going to feel anything at all. So one thing about a rig like this is really light, and the lighter your rod and reel this time of year, you're going to feel a lot more, because there's less resistance, and you just feel better with a light setup, you know, regardless of what you're going to use, just a lighter one. And then, you know, the light line going to give you a good straight direct line to your bait, especially these lighter baits, you know, and it's going to allow you to feel them better, and your line's not going to, you know, be all dissipating in the water. So, you know, on the finesse baits, you know, a setup like this is going to be what you want. The swamp bugs, been catching a lot of fish on the swamp bugs. Only thing different, normally this time of year I'm throwing like a moss candy and just green pumpkins. With the water clear this year, I've kind of switched it up quite a bit, and I've been throwing this plum a lot more, and I've been getting a lot more bites on it. Still getting bites on the others, but I am getting a few bites on the plum too. So I'm just kind of, with the watercolor being a little different than what I would say normal for wintertime, or not really wintertime, just usually we have a lot more stained water in some of the areas, and with it mostly being clear, I'm playing a little more with colors. So you know, for obvious reason, when it's dirtier or stained, you're seeing a lot more silhouettes. When that water clears off, you know, they're going to pick up colors a lot more, and a change of color can make a big difference, regardless if it's bass fishing or crappie fishing. So, you know, experiment with colors a little more. You know, the stick baits, I'm just, you know, same old Pro Blue 2, you know, Mega Bass, 8-pound test, and a good Falcon jerkbait special rod. So, you know, all rigged on one of these real light Hyper Mag loose reels. Another extremely light setup for your jerk baits. You want to feel everything your line's doing and that bait's doing, so you pick up just the faintest little tick. A lot of times they won't really hit these baits hard, and when it's sitting still, they'll come up and they'll grab it, and you'll just see that line twitch, or you'll just feel a little tick. So same deal, a real light setup's going to work great for you there. Another bait, especially in the winter, it really starts coming into play more so just to catch fish, you know, but it will catch keepers, and some decent keepers is your Ned rig. You know, it's been huge at Table Rock, and we've been using it up here for a few years. I rig mine a little bit different. I don't usually rig it with the traditional, what you'd call a Ned rig head or Ned head, where the hook is exposed. I rig mine on one of the Crappie Gator Shaky Football 3/16 ounce head, and I run it on there, and then I run it in there just like you would like a Texas rig worm, and it's weedless, you know, and brushless, so you can drag along the bottom, bring it through brush, and you're not getting hung up, you know, like you would with that exposed hook like your traditional Ned Rig setup. So you know, I really just like throwing it on that little 3/16 ounce head. 8-pound test was 8-pound leader, and then I got 30-pound braid on this reel. Again, it's a Falcon Cara rod, a loose reels, and then you know, like I said, 8-pound test on your leader, and at 3/16 ounce head. One thing I will say, like on the Ned rig, some of them, like you can buy the just a pre-made Ned rig, like they're big bites. You know, a lot of people make them. You know, it's just a Ned rig worm, and sometimes they can be a little smaller in diameter. Not quite what I'm looking for. Sometimes I want a little more bulkier bait, and what I've found here lately, and I use a lot. Sometimes you can't find a Ned rig. You just take a Cinco and cut that Cinco right in half, and you end up with this. Here's one side of it. The other side is on my bait here. You know, so you get two of them out of one, and the diameter and the size is just about perfect. So if you're running low or you can't find a Ned Rig setup, or you want something a little fatter to fit your hook setup, just try a Cinco. Just a Cinco, cut it right in half, and it's just about perfect, I've seen. So and those, you know, that's when things get really tough and you're having a hard time getting bites. You're going to throw all these baits on pretty much the same banks right now, whether it's your finesse jig, your swamp bug, your stick baits, you know, your Ned Rig. You're just looking for either channel swing banks or steep banks. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a channel swing bank. You know, it's more of a steeper bank. And usually just 45 degrees, you know, just start looking at 45 degrees, look at the bank up above, see what it's doing, because it's going to do the same thing down, you know, below the water. You know, bigger rocks or ledge rocks seem to be key in the wintertime. When I say ledge rocks, you know, it's just like your flat, what do you call it, like slate looking rock, flat rock, shelf rock, or ledge rock, all kind of the same thing, but it's a hard bottom. The bass like the hard bottom. And something else that I'm a big believer in is that those shelf rocks have different water tables, and as that water goes down through it and it hits the table, it'll leak out into the lake at different various depths. So it might be 10 foot down and some of that earth water is leaking out in there, and it may just be a couple degrees warmer. It makes a difference, and I think the bass really kind of relate to that, and they'll lay up in that slightly warmer water. That's my theory. You know, I don't know if it's been proven or not, but you can look above the bank and you see this water leaking out, or you know, you see it coming out. These ledges has different steps of ledges, so I'm just you know, expecting it's doing the same thing below the surface. So that's kind of why ledge rocks, I really like that this time of year. Where your rocks, where you have chains, where you have ledge, changing to you know, more just like rocky. Those are good spots. Transition banks are really good as we progress and we get closer to March. You know, pea gravel mix really starts coming into play. You know, because believe it or not, these fish, they're full of eggs right now. So they're already, it's slow, it's wintertime, but they already know that spring's coming, spawn's coming, and they're probably up in there kind of rooting around, getting their area that they're going to go up and spawn. So basically that's going to mean maybe a little pea gravel mix. Something else you want to look at if you're looking at a long straight bank, I call them drains. Like you see the bank up above, and there'll be a little cut and it drains. You know, anytime it rains, well, that's a different contour below the surface. You know, you got all straight, flat, and then you got a drain, which is a cut, and it kind of cuts down and it runs on out. If you idle over it with your electronics, you know, if you're running your Garmin's on down image or side image, and you just idle down through a cove, and you'll see that split on your side image especially, and you'll see it get darker, and if you just look up on the bank, you'll see one of them drains that I'm talking about. And you can really, if you idle them down you know, about 3 miles an hour, see 3 to 4 seems to be the best to get that side image to work just right, and you'll literally be able to pick up that drain or a creek, how it comes down through you know, down through the cove or creek or what have you. So that's a good spot in the winter, is to work these drains. Some people call them guts, you know, cuts, whatever. It's just a little deeper spot, you know, down a long straight bank. So it's kind of the same as a transition. It's just a difference in the bank. If you get a cold snap, or say a few days after a low pressure system, you get high blue skies, high pressure system, they'll relate to these little guts and these cuts a lot more. They'll kind of get down and lay in the bottom of those. So something to keep in mind. You know, the I had mentioned it was the A-Rig. Obviously, the A-Rig's a big player, especially right now. This time of year, the A-Rig is it's definitely a positive tool for catching bass. And it's basically the deal with the A-Rig, I think, is you can get it down to the depth and you can consistently run it at whatever depth you want. Compared to like a stick bait or a jig, a jig's going to the bottom, it's on that bottom. The stick bait's going to go whatever, 6, 8, 12 foot, whatever. But these A-Rigs, you can watch them on the live scope. You can watch them down 25 foot over a brush pile and creep it just over the top of that brush pile, and then fish come out. Where you won't, obviously you can get a jig down there, but the fish may be feeding up. So if the shad are, say, suspended at 20 foot and you're fishing in 25 foot of water, your jig's going to go down, and once it goes through them, you may not get the bites like you might on an A-Rig, and that's why it's so effective. You can work it at whatever depth. The A-Rig, down here, brush is key. Brush, say, in, I don't know, from 12 to 30 foot of water. Just kind of reel it over each depth until you see where the fish are relating to. I strongly recommend the Crappie Gator wire swim bait jig hooks. So when you do work these brush piles, or we got brush piles, we got sunken lifts, we've got cables. They suspend on these big cables on these big docks, and the key is trying to get your bait as close as you can to that structure without getting it hung up. But if you do get it hung up and you're throwing the wire hooks, like I said before, you can pull them and it'll straighten that hook up. You get your whole rig back, straighten your hook, fix your hook, and you're good to go. So a good quality A-Rig is really important too. Just make sure it's got the good clamps on there and the good swivels. You don't want, because there's a lot of tension on these when you do catch a good fish. Most of the time you're throwing braids, so there's not a lot of give, and they will straighten out if you don't have a good quality setup. So it is worth the money to buy a good A-Rig setup, the good hooks, the good swim baits. But that kind of supports what I'm saying as far as throwing them on a wire hook. So if you do get it hung up, you can straighten that hook and get that whole expensive rig back. The swim baits, there's a lot of swim baits out there to use. I don't know, I really kind of liking these Reaction Innovations. There's a couple colors, like this one here is the Impact Bluegill. It's probably a standard. It's a really good color. And then you got another one. This one here is this is called the Sexy Shad. Kind of chartreuse, blue, purpley color. Little shad, looks really good too. A lot of times on your A-Rig, you'll put 4 of them that are one color, and in the center, put the one with the chartreuse on it. So they'll key in on that one with the hook. Maybe a different style of swim bait, a different color, something so they focus in on that one that has the hook compared to like a couple dummies up on the top, that are, don't have the hooks in them. So, that's as far as the bass, that's been it. The fishing's been good, really. A lot of fish. You can go out on any given day and catch, 20 fish, 25 fish. There'll be some days that are slower, but you can catch a lot of fish and a lot of just keepers. The bigger ones they're tricky right now, and it's winter time. But if you do find a bank, you can literally pull on a bank and catch several great big fish if you find that bank. It's just finding that one. So, but just sticking to your steeper banks, you're going to be good. Your secondary points are going to be good with a little wind on it. Your main lake points can be okay. Myself, I haven't found them to be as productive as some sort of creek point or secondary point or just a steeper bank inside a creek. You know, I have noticed this year they seem to be a little further towards main lake, like just inside the main lake, the creeks, are midway back. They just don't seem to be towards the back like I'm used to them being. So it's just one of the deals. Just pick your creek, any big creek, start on the main lake and hit every little point, hit every little steeper bank in that creek, and just work your way to the very back and work it slow until you finally catch a couple fish. And you'll see, once you catch a fish or two, you're going to catch 3 or 4 right there in that same area. And a lot of times you can maybe find you a couple banks like that and just keep rotating around. And sooner or later, the big ones are going to move up and they're going to feed. You know, some of the tournaments here lately, you know, about what we expect, 13.5 to 14 to 17 has been really solid. You know, Newcomb busted a 25-pound bag last weekend. I'm just going to say that's kind of rare to see that type of a bag this time of year, but obviously it can be done. He done it, and yeah, I think it's just a matter of pulling on the right bank and them big ones being up there feeding. You know, but there was a 20-pound bag this last weekend, and then I don't remember what it was, went down. From there, you know, I will say day to day it does change. Just for instance, we fished a tournament both Saturday and Sunday last weekend. Saturday, I bet we had 25, 30 fish. We had 9 or 10 keepers. Just a really good day. Sunday we went out, man, it was tough. Almost same conditions. We did go to a different area looking for some bigger fish, you know, hoping, but I think we probably caught 10 fish and we had 4 keepers all day. So, you know, it just shows you, you know, it could be an area. We were on the lower end on Saturday, caught a lot more fish. It was a lot more productive. We kind of went up river a little bit on Sunday, and it wasn't as good. Now, you pick another day, it might flip-flop. So it's kind of a coin toss this time of year, especially this year with the water being clear like that. You can just launch your boat and start fishing. I would just say pick a big creek and just take your time and fish just about every bit of it and see where the fish are at. The crappie continues just to be excellent. I went out the other day and I think I counted 22 crappie in a row every single cast. I caught a good crappie. And one thing I'll point out about it, they were right in the middle of a flat in the back of a creek in about 12 foot of water. They weren't relating to anything. I would have never known they were there, but I was trolling from one side of the creek to the other. I had the troll motor on high, and I looked down at the live scope, and they were all over. And I stopped. I spun troll motor around, stopped, just to see what they were, because I figured they were crappie. And I started casting, and they were you know, the 11-inch crappie. So just giant crappie right in the middle. So on something like that, just idle. If you're looking for crappie, just put it on down scan, side scan, idle down through a creek till you start seeing a bunch of shad, and then really start paying attention, because the crappie are going to be around them and the bass are going to be around them. You'll see the crappie, they kind of look like a big tree, you know, bunched up. Sometimes they'll spread out, but they're usually pretty tight together. And the bass will tend to be, you know, not such a big school of them. There might be 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 or 8 of them together, kind of spread out just a little bit. But you know, you'll see everything, you know, idling down through that creek. But the whole thing is, you don't know where they're going to be. They're going to be bunched up, the crappie. Obviously, if you find brush pile in at least 15 foot, probably, well, I say that, 15 foot to 20 foot, I'm throwing this, that's little, that little Kitech Easy Swimmer. I don't think you can beat that this time of year. This one's called the Light Hatch. There's several different colors that just look like shad. I've got this old one here. It's got a little chartreuse on it. You know, sometimes they want that, maybe if it's a real cloudy day or dark day. But I'm just rigging it on an 1/8 ounce head. You know, just like this on a little 6-pound test. on a crappie rod, and I'm throwing it out and counting it down to wherever I see them fish, and you're just swimming it right through it. Obviously with the live scope, there's no thinking to it. You look at them, you throw out there, you watch it go to them, and you just swim it through them, and you watch them come out and grab it. So, I mean, that's the neat thing about the live scope, is it takes all the guess out of it, and you can find fish and target fish that you wouldn't even know they were there. A lot of times I'll be panning these docks. There's a lot of crappie suspended under these docks, just hundreds of them. And usually they're the bigger docks still with the big swim platform. Could be main lake, halfway back, 3/4 away. It don't matter if you got a little deeper water. But every once in a while, when I'm panning these docks, I'll just pan out into the center, and I'm surprised a lot of times there'll be a pile of crappie just sitting out here in nowhere land. And obviously them are the easiest ones to catch. There's nothing, you just throw over to them and reel your bait through it, and you catch them. Now I've said that, but I did, I was back in a creek, and there was some brush, and the brush was in about 8 foot of water, and there was a little bit, some of the sticks sticking up. And I rigged up the old, just the same little 1/8 ounce with a little, what's it called, a little blue and silver, little crappie jig, and I rigged it with a cork bobber. And I set it about 4 foot, threw it past it, and I just reeled it really slow, creeped it along, and stopped it. And then crappie will come out of that brush and pounce on it. And you can catch a lot of crappie doing that. And it's a lot of fun. Looking at my marker buoy here, one thing, these marker buoys are really, really important. Like if you're idling down through the creek and you're looking for these crappie, just out in the middle, or say a brush pile, you just idle along, you keep this thing undone like this, hold it in your hand, and you're just idling down, watch the screen, and as soon as you see that screen, just toss that thing out. And then it's going to go down right to where you're seeing them on your screen. Throw it to the back of the boat, because when you're idling down these creeks, there's a delay in what you're seeing on your screen and where you're actually at. So usually if you see it on your screen, you're doing, say, 3 miles an hour. If you give it a good toss to the back, you're going to land pretty close to what you're seeing on that screen. So they come in real handy. You can toss them out, they go to the bottom, and the marker buoy is sitting up there, and then you just turn around and just throw over by it and keep fanning it until you see, because you won't be right on top of them, but you'll be close. You just keep fanning until you start catching one or two, and then you know how far from your buoy to cast, and you can just sit there and keep catching them. So I think you can catch a limit of crappie right now in about 30 minutes. So that's how good it is. It should stay that. I don't see it changing any. The bass, nothing's going to change for, this is January, so we got all January, all February, at least half of March, and then they're going to start moving, migrating a little bit more towards spawning areas, maybe to the backs of creeks, pockets, stuff like that. I will say there's, on these crappie, if you're shooting docks, and if you're shooting with the old kind of traditional lead head, little lead keeper, it's good for about 2 or 3 shoots, and then that bait starts wallering out and it gets loose, and you're spending more time trying to re-rig it or super gluing it or whatever. There's a couple different style little baits, crappie heads out that, I mean, if you don't have them, you're kind of wasting your time. You're wasting a lot of time. One of them is this here, and it's got a coil spring on it. Okay, and you just run your bait on her like normal, and you twist it on up tight. That holds it real good. And another one here, I just found it last week. It's a Lori Bait Company, and it's out of Lincoln, Missouri. Their website is LoriCOLures.net, and they're out of Lincoln, Missouri, and they have this real neat, a couple of things that really impressed me about it. It's got a little wire keeper, okay, and it's not that lead, it's a wire keeper. So you can pull it down there, get further into the plastic if you want it. You run your plastic on there, turn your plastic at a 90, push it on it, and push it up in there. It holds them excellent. But another thing is the quality of hook that's in this thing. It's got a bigger sickle hook in it, really sharp, and it works really good for these swim baits because it's a little bigger hook and it gets up into that, further back in that swim bait. So, I don't know, look them up. I caught several fish on it. I really like it. There's a lot of baits out there, crappie, heads and stuff, but not all of them have the good quality hook that this one does. So I don't know, take a look at that. Save yourself some time with getting a good quality, even though it's crappie. The right bait and head can save you a lot of trouble while you're out there, especially if you're shooting. When you're just casting, it's not as bad, but you start shooting and that bait's hitting that water, it's tearing them up and it messes them up pretty quick. So, guys, that's really about it. Like I said, not a whole lot's going to change. Winter's probably the best time to fish down here at the Ozarks. All you see out there are fishermen. There's plenty good gear. AFCO just makes everything, hoodies, sweatshirts, their winter gear, everything. You got to have the right gear. If you don't have the right gear, you're not going to have any fun. But you put the right gear on, you come down here, you can fish all day and have a lot of fun. So I don't know if I can help you. Ever give me a call. You want to book a trip for crappie in the winter right now? It's super. If you want to learn to bass fish in the winter, the different techniques and the way we go about it, because it is different. It's a little different fishing in the winter. We can definitely help you with that. So either way, guys, until next time, good luck. Wear your life jackets. Be safe, and we'll see you.